mouths that had once ignored him, and Maya stood frozen, betrayed confusion mixing with hurt as she wondered if their conversations had been an experiment. A joke? A lie? And Elijah, seeing that look, realized money could still ruin things if he wasn't careful. So he did the only honest thing he could. He apologized to her publicly, admitting he had hidden his wealth not to manipulate her but to protect himself, to find someone who saw him when he had nothing, and he told her she owed him nothing, not forgiveness, not friendship, not love, and weeks passed in silence, Maya avoiding him, processing, questioning her own feelings, until one evening she found a handwritten letter on her desk. Not an expensive gift, not an invitation to luxury, but words, raw and unpolished, explaining how loneliness feels louder in a mansion, how respect means more when it's given freely, how he had fallen for her courage long before she knew who he was. And Maya cried, not because he was rich, but because for the first time someone had trusted her enough to be vulnerable. And when she finally agreed to meet him, it wasn't at a five-star restaurant but at the same diner where Elijah had once eaten alone in uniform. And there, over coffee and silence and nervous smiles, they started again, slowly, honestly, navigating the imbalance of wealth with boundaries and communication, facing backlash from coworkers who suddenly treated Maya differently, facing skepticism from friends who questioned Elijah's motives, facing their own fears of being hurt, until another twist emerged when Maya turned down a promotion offered solely because of Elijah's status, proving once more she wanted success on her own terms, and Elijah, watching her walk away from power that came too easily, knew he had found what he was searching for, and when he eventually proposed, it wasn't with cameras or headlines but with a simple ring and a promise to never stop seeing people for who they are before what they have. And their wedding was small, their life grounded, their story spreading not as a fairy tale about money but as a reminder that character reveals itself when no one is watching, and that the janitor everyone ignored was never testing the world's manners. He was waiting for one woman brave enough to stand still and see him. And if this story made you pause, if it challenged how you treat the invisible people around you, don't let it end here. Subscribe now, because the stories you choose to hear are the stories that shape who you become. Woman defended the black janitor no one respected, unaware he was a billionaire looking for a wife. And it all began on a freezing Monday morning in downtown Chicago when everyone in the glass tower hurried past the man with the mop as if he were invisible. His shoulders bent not from age but from the weight of being ignored. His name Elijah Brown stitched plainly onto a faded blue uniform that no one ever bothered to read, and as executives barked orders into phones and interns laughed too loudly at jokes meant to impress, Elijah quietly cleaned the marble floors, listening, observing, learning, because what no one knew, what no one even imagined, was that Elijah was not there because he needed the job. He was there because he had chosen it, because after selling his cybersecurity empire for billions, after discovering that wealth attracted lies faster than light attracts moths, he had made a vow to disappear into plain sight and search for one thing money had failed to buy him. Wife who loved him when there was nothing to gain. And day after day he endured the sideways glances, the subtle insults, the outright disrespect, managers snapping fingers at him, employees stepping over his freshly cleaned floors, security guards treating him like furniture. And then one morning, in the elevator lobby, a junior executive named Karen loudly complained that the janitor smell was ruining her day, demanding he take another elevator meant for staff. And that was the moment when Maya Reynolds stopped, because Maya was new, a project coordinator from a small Ohio town who had grown up watching her mother clean offices at night, and something in her chest tightened as she saw Elijah lower his eyes and apologize even though he had done nothing wrong. And without thinking about consequences or politics or her probationary status, Maya turned around and said, calmly but firmly, "He's a human being, not a smell, and this is a public elevator." And the lobby went silent. Karen scoffed, others stared, and Elijah looked up, truly looked up, meeting Maya's eyes with surprise flickering across his face, because no one had defended him before. Not like that, not without hesitation, and from that moment everything changed, though neither of them knew it yet, because Maya walked into that elevator unaware she had just stepped into a test Elijah had been silently running for months, a test not of manners but of character. And over the following weeks, Maya continued to treat Elijah with simple dignity, saying good morning, asking how his day was, bringing him coffee when she brought one for herself, while others continued to ignore him, And Elijah noticed everything: the way she stood up for interns during meetings, the way she refused to take credit for others' work, the way she stayed late to help a colleague whose child was sick, and slowly, carefully, he began to speak more, sharing stories of his past jobs without mentioning numbers, listening as Maya spoke about her dreams, her fear of becoming invisible in a world obsessed with titles, her heartbreak from a past relationship where love disappeared the moment money became an issue. And then came the twist that tested them both. When a false accusation spread that Elijah had stolen a watch from a senior manager's office, security was called, whispers exploded, and once again people were eager to believe the worst, eager to point fingers, eager to prove their quiet prejudices correct. And as Elijah stood surrounded by guards, calm but disappointed, Maya pushed through the crowd and said, "Stop," demanding proof, pulling security footage herself, refusing to let them escort him out until the truth was shown. And when the video revealed the watch had been misplaced by the manager himself, there was awkward laughter, forced apologies, but something deeper cracked inside Elijah, because in that moment he realized Maya wasn't kind only when it was easy. She was brave when it was costly, and that night he went home to his penthouse overlooking the lake, sat alone with the city lights blinking like questions, and decided it was time to raise the stakes. So the next day he arrived not in uniform but in a tailored suit, the lobby buzzing as he stepped in, security standing straighter, executives whispering, and when he called a company-wide meeting, shock rippled through the room as he introduced himself not as a janitor but as the majority shareholder who had quietly acquired the building months earlier, faces drained of color, apologies tumbling out of mouths that had once ignored him, and Maya